Do you need encouragement to turn tragedies into your own triumphant life story? If so, this podcast is for you. Listen to powerful guests who have persevered through challenges so you can gain strength to build your championship life. The host of Professor of Perseverance podcast, Dr. James Perdue.
Hey, come on in. Let's get started today. Hey, today I'm going to talk with someone that's got some physical issues here. And it's something that we all need to be on the lookout, to try to help other people anyway. Okay. But remember, let's grab some gold nuggets in here and use it for ourselves to help us get through some trying times in life. And be sure to pay it forward. Help the next person ahead of you. So, to go from there. All right, today, let's go ahead and get started here. And let me click this button right here. Welcome to the show, Diana Fannon. Is it Diana? Diane?
It's Diana, yeah. Hi.
Diana, all right. Just say, come on, Goofy, get on the program. Just say it to me, and we'll move on. All right, so all right, Diana, I didn't want to join, and I want people to, but we have an issue here. You have an issue, and it's something you're living with, and it didn't come till somewhat later than most people, and so we'll let you go ahead and you get started. You throw us where we need to jump in, and we'll follow along with you.
All right, sounds good. So what I'm going to talk about today is epilepsy.
There we go.
Yeah, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 17, and I had up until that point been largely healthy with no real issues, medical problems at all. And I'd been a competitive swimmer. I was getting ready to go to college to continue swimming, and I right around, it was the middle of my senior year, I woke up one morning. Well, I don't remember this. My sister tells me the story, and she heard a thud and found me on the bathroom floor. And so when I woke up, I was already in the hospital because they called the ambulance. And so that is how that morning began. And so, that was when I was 17. I'm now in my mid to late 40s. So that was about 30 years.
Hey, don't age yourself in front of you. All right. 100 years from now, people are going to find supposedly stuff's on the internet forever, they claim.
Right. They're going to
100 years from now, someone's going to find this, and they're going to say, she was 40 then, and that means this program was put up. There you go.
So I had, it happened my senior year of high school, and back then things were very different than they are now, right? There wasn't as much information available. There wasn't as much. We didn't know anybody who had epilepsy. We didn't know anybody who had seizures. It was really scary for all of us. And so we did kind of what we did with a lot of things back then, which is we took the medication and we took the prescription. I took the medication. I didn't have another seizure, and I went off to college. And it was a lot when you think about it. I was leaving, going to another state, moving away from my family. Now that I'm a parent, I can imagine how scary that must have been for my own parents. And it was hard, I went to college. I did end up having more seizures at college. And if you think about the environment of college, it's not necessarily supportive of managing seizures. So for me, some of the triggers for seizures can be things like stress or lack of sleep or alcohol. There's a lot of things that can trigger that in college, right?
There's a little bit of alcohol in college.
A little bit, right?
A little bit, yeah, that's right.
So I did my best, but I also just I kind of wanted to be just a normal college kid, and I was still swimming or trying to. So I struggled with a lot as I tried to manage that, wanting to be just like everybody else and wanting to get good grades, wanting to swim, all of the things. So I swam my first 2 years, and then I quit. I was just having a hard time managing everything. My mental health wasn't great. And that's a real you'll see if you dig into it a little bit that rates of depression are a lot higher in people with epilepsy. And so I ended up taking a semester off during my junior year. I was lucky to have parents who were like, okay. I had a friend actually first in college who suggested it, because I don't think I ever would have thought about it. At the time I was used to being sort of high achieving and focusing on the path, right? You follow the, I don't know, you sort of toe the line. You do what you're expected to do. And at that point, I wasn't able to do all the things I was supposed to do. So I ended up taking a semester off. I went home. I saw a therapist. I really had to kind of focus on myself for a little while and the therapy. And I ended up taking medication to treat my depression at the time. And it all helped. That wasn't the end of it, but it definitely helped at that moment. And I was able to go back to college and really enjoy it and feel like I was engaged without it exacerbating my seizures. And so,
well, let me ask a couple of questions here. One, for the people that heard of epilepsy, but not sure exactly what causes it or what it is. For the people that never heard of it, young people that hadn't experienced or seen them or friends or somebody. So epilepsy, what is that, and how would that might have started?
So there's a bunch of different kinds. So epilepsy is typically when you have 2 or more seizures. So people can have seizures that are the result of illnesses that doesn't make it epilepsy. Like you might have infants, for example, who have febrile seizures, which are the result of like high fevers, which may or may not be epilepsy. But epilepsy is typically when you have seizures. In my case, I was having what they call, we call them tonic-clonic seizures, which are full body seizures. We used to call them grand mal back in the day. And so that's when your full body kind of stiffens, and it's not sort of the shaking that we see in the movies, but it's a little more stiffening, and like you see some kind of limbs stiffen. And then there's also things called like absent seizures, where you'll see someone their eyes kind of glaze over and it looks like they may not be paying attention. And there's some other things. There's a couple other kinds of seizures. So there's all kinds of different, or not all kinds, there's several different kinds of seizures. And there are some things called idiopathic seizures, which are like, they don't really know why they happen.
Okay.
Then there are some things that can happen if you have any kind of brain injury, and then they can start from the part of the brain that's damaged. And then that's what happens in that case. So lack of oxygen to the brain can happen also, and that can cause seizures. So there's a couple different ways that seizures happen. Oftentimes, mine started at 17. So it is unusual when it starts that late without knowing the cause, but it happens, right? The brain nobody really completely understands the brain. So it's hard to know. And so we never did figure out the cause of mine. Lots of testing, lots of trying to figure out what happened. And then you'll find that it's either located in one part of the brain or it's more generalized, and they can't locate the specific origin.
Can you know when one's coming on?
So sometimes, usually what would happen for me is I would feel a little funny kind of, and sometimes I would have a seizure, but not always. So every time I had a seizure, I would feel that way before, but it didn't always mean that I was going to have a seizure. Does that make sense? Like, sometimes I would just feel a little funny or a little sick or a little off. And what happened
that could have been that's very, very small seizure you're talking about that's not recognized. Could that be that's different still?
So yeah, for me, it didn't mean that. For some people, yes. I didn't have many seizures. So I had mine were fairly well controlled with medication as I went on in life. But the medication that I was taking was a medication that I wouldn't have been able to have children on. So as I got older, we had to start thinking about changing medications, and the side effects were really awful, right? So really tired, really like cognitively slowing. And it makes sense when you think about what those medications do, because the seizures happen because the neurons are basically firing out of whack.
Oh yeah.
To really speak in like, I mean, I'm not a neurologist, so that's about as much as I understand. So,
Well, that's I think that's what most people understand is
right,
the electrical impulses that are in the brain. All of a sudden, they're just
right, and
all
having a
over the
little
place,
party up
and
there.
still instead of a certain pattern,
Exactly.
to make yourself move and lose, move around and live
Yep,
basically normal. And if they're
exactly.
just firing erratically,
Yep,
causing stuff to happen that's not normal.
that's right. And so I found a medication that worked for me, which was called Depakote, but it's one of the oldest medications, and it's one of the sort of first line, it was at least for a long time, but it also had some of the uh, most sort of damaging side effects, and um, particularly if you were to get pregnant. And they have what are called neural tube side effects, which is if you were to get pregnant, things like spina bifida, just really things that could be very difficult if you were to have a baby.
Yeah,
Not guaranteed, of course, but just a very high risk
yeah,
of
yeah,
them.
yeah. Isn't it
So,
a shame? Isn't it a shame that, and when I'm not just talking just this particularly, most medication we take, we have to decide is the cure better than the the what do you
better than
call it?
the risk. It's sort of the cost benefit.
The risk, what could happen.
Yep.
Can't think of the name of it, but
Yeah.
the side effects. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to determine, weigh it, is it worth taking? I mean, I'm sure 20,000 years from now, everything will be so there'll be no side effects. They'll just have everything here. Take this, you're done with. But
Oh, from your lips.
but in our today, we still have to deal with the possibilities of what that could happen
I
while
know.
we're trying to treat you with this.
Yes. And it really is. It's hard because I knew that if I took my medication and I took it on time and also sort of watched my sleep, I was almost guaranteed not to have seizures. So the considering changing medications was really scary.
Hmm.
Um, but I did, and because as I got older, I wanted to think about it, and I wanted to know that I could be ready if I wanted to have a child, because that was
Yeah,
really scary to me to think about. I could never do that, or I have a child who may be born with a birth defect because of something I chose,
yeah,
right? It felt selfish to me. And so those kinds of considerations were always in the back of my mind. And so we kind of trialed some different things um, throughout my 30s. We tried some different medications, and we kind of found some that worked, but throughout that process, I also had like a lot of seizures. I tried one and I had like 5 seizures in a week. And that was not something I enjoyed. I
that's
mean, I
right.
guess, to put it mildly,
Apparently this was not working for me.
right?
Let's try something different now. Yeah,
Right. And it was there were things that happened, having seizures where I just, I had one time I had a seizure where, I was living with a friend at the time, and after I had a seizure, because there's this period of time after you have seizures that's called the post-ictal phase, where things are still a little hazy
hmm,
and you're not quite fully conscious. And one time during that period, I left the house and walked across the busy street and ended up in a local beauty parlor that was like across. And I just left in my pajamas, was barefoot, like.
yeah,
And so when I came to, I didn't really know where I was. I mean, I knew I wasn't home, but I couldn't remember everything. And so I was trying to call the phone numbers that I remembered were long distance because they were my mom and my sister. They were the
yeah,
ones, and the phone wasn't working. So luckily, as I was dialing and the phone wasn't working, it came back to, and I understood where I was.
yeah,
Some of those moments were so scary. And, I showed back up at my house where I was living, And I walked into my best friend's room at the time, and I was all bloody and like, I just was like, I just looked kind of a mess, and she knew immediately what had happened. But it was, moments like that during my journey have been just really scary, and sort of those moments of figuring out, what do I need to do to make sure this doesn't happen? What do I do to make sure I don't have a seizure?
What so did you in college, did you get to compete swimming? Did you try it?
I did for the first 2 years, and I just found that it wasn't manageable for me, simply because of I was still having so many seizures, or not so many, but a lot for me.
Yeah.
And I was still having such a struggle with my mental health, that I, by my junior year, so I stopped my sophomore year swimming.
Okay.
Because of the morning practices. Swimming is an all-encompassing sport. It is
Oh yeah.
morning practices, afternoon, weights, traveling. There was so much to it. And I knew that with my academics, social, and my mental health, that I wasn't in that moment able to do what I needed to do to keep swimming. And so
every time you went to go to swim, was your coach over there biting their fingernails because wondering if you were going to have a seizure in the water?
No, that wasn't an issue, and
Okay.
I never, swimming has never been an issue. And since that time, I've done a few masters. Like I off and on, I've gone back to swimming with masters, and it hasn't been an issue. Seizures in swimming aren't really a big deal.
Okay, good.
As long as if your seizures are controlled, you can do pretty much
Mm-hmm.
anything. The only thing I don't do is scuba diving, because of the air pressure, and that's potential impact on seizures. So that's really the only thing I don't do. But everything else is pretty much on the table, unless you're having so many seizures a day that you have, like, some people
Yeah.
have many more seizures than I do,
Yeah.
or ever did. And that means their health is at risk for many other reasons, right? Like, if you're having 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 seizures a day, then it's not just about what you can or can't do. It's about how you're managing your health in general, right?
Yeah.
So my seizures were such that I was having, I think the most I ever had was when I was switching medication. But
Mm-hmm.
typically my seizures were like 1 to 2 a year at the most.
Okay.
So I was pretty fortunate. I mean, if you can call it fortunate, my epilepsy was very well managed,
Controlled.
and I never
Yeah.
had that many seizures.
Okay. And we were talking before we got started here that I used to teach and coach, and we had uh, a girl that was in school. She wasn't on the basketball team I coached, but it was like the last day of her sixth grade year or
Mm-hmm.
something that she got off the bus or something and then started having seizures, and then it continued all through her seventh grade year, and she missed a lot of it at school
Right.
because there were that many and that bad,
Right.
and yeah, the sad thing is, her friends wouldn't invite her over for weekend parties because they didn't want that to happen at the party with them, whatever. And so, which is understandable. Um, and I was telling you that her eighth grade year, we were getting ready for our basketball season, and we had found out that she was going to have surgery to remove half her brain. And again, at that time, she was like the oldest person to have half a brain removed to help control her seizure. And so she goes to get that done. But before she goes, again, the other coach I was coaching with, we made her an honorary member of the team. So she got a T-shirt. We won the championship that year. She got a trophy and everything like that. And we presented it to her before she went for the surgery because I was worried that she may not remember this afterwards. So I wanted her to feel good and happy while she could remember it. And
Yeah.
so, but hey, Stacy, if you're listening, we're talking about you, girl. So she listens in on us time to time.
Oh, I love
So So Stacey, we're talking about you, and I told you, Stacey, I want to have you on the show one day so you can give us the real story. So she goes off, and I'm sure, I don't know everything about, but I would imagine she's still taking medication for it and everything. But she's able to walk and talk, and
Yep.
as normal as possible for someone that's had that. So she's not doing too bad overall.
Yeah, so so I actually, one of the people are surprised. I mean, or not people, but some people are surprised. Like, one of the things that I wanted to have done, I wanted to have brain surgery as well. That was my goal. Like, I went in for several studies to have like the EEG, the brain monitoring, the sleep
Yeah.
studies, to see if they could localize where my seizures were originating. And for me, in my case, they weren't localized to one spot in my brain. So they were generalized rather than localized. And so that just means that when they did the studies, they were spreading across my brain
Yeah.
and not in one spot. So what that meant is that I was not a good candidate
Yeah.
for surgery, because if it's all over, they'd have to remove my entire brain, which, wasn't an option. So because all I wanted was to be able to, think about my future and think about having kids and think about things like that without having to constantly worry about having another seizure. So one of the things that became an option for me, which really changed my life, was the VNS device, which is what I currently use, which is a vagal nerve stimulator. And I've had it for about, I want to say 7 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always call it like a pacemaker for my brain, which is probably factually incorrect. And there's probably neurologists everywhere saying she's giving terrible information. But it's basically,
people, go Google it. Google
right?
it, people,
Google it to see
and
what
get
it
the
is.
correct answer.
I
But
can
she's
just,
giving you what, it's, and I would imagine it's similar to a pacemaker.
yeah, I can describe what it does,
What it
which
does,
is,
it interrupts or sends the correct
well,
signals.
it does a pulse for
Yeah,
me, every 5 minutes for 30
yeah,
seconds.
yeah,
So there's a battery pack, and then in my chest, and then it wraps around my vagal nerve. And then for every 5 minutes, it does a pulse. And
yeah.
then I have a little battery. If I feel something coming on, I can wave it, and then it'll do a pulse on cue.
Okay, I got
So
you. I got you.
yeah, so but and I'm still on medication, so I haven't been able to stop completely. But I haven't had any seizures in 7 years.
Okay,
So
so this device here is, I don't say relatively new, but new to you.
it's
Seven
new to me.
years.
It's not new in
Yeah.
general, but it's new to me.
Okay. Good.
So
Yeah, my mom, I told you she's 85. She just got a pacemaker last year for her heart.
yeah,
So she's still kicking and screaming. Says
right. I love it.
sometime with her dementia, we don't know what she's kicking and screaming about. No, I'm kidding. I tell people I wouldn't wish this dementia on anybody.
No.
And it's sad, but my brother and I were fortunate and we're blessed in two ways. One, she's not one of those angry people that's cussing you out every time they turn around, and they can't help it. That's just the way everything
It's
goes.
hard. I
But
know.
not that, and she's not a runner, so I don't have to worry. I'm in a wheelchair. I don't know if you knew that, but
Oh
I'm in a
no.
wheelchair, so I don't have to worry about 2 a.m. Because she's moved in with me, so we can
Okay.
help her with her dementia. So I don't have to worry about 2 a.m. and her sneaking out of
Right.
the house, going
Oh my
down the
goodness.
road somewhere. So
Yeah.
she's not angry and she's not the runner. So we can deal with the rest of it
Yeah.
from that. So
It's hard
I
though.
know, James, quit talking. You changed the subject. Darn
No,
you, boy. All right. But
that's incredible, and she's lucky to have you both. Honestly.
well, I told you earlier, she's the strongest woman I know, and everybody should be able to say your mother's the strongest woman you've ever known. Now,
But not every
I know that's not true in all cases
but not every
because of what
parent can
happens.
say that their kids are taking care of them, and especially today. It really is.
Yeah.
It's a
We
different time today, and
we want
or the culture, or I don't know what it is, but it's different.
yeah. We want to definitely keep her out of the nursing home as long as possible.
Yeah.
From that. So, all right, that's up. Let's get back on topic, James. All right. So, so with
um.
your seizures and stuff, you got to control with this device and your medication. And I think what I wanted to ask, so I guess you're able to drive. You
Well, so
work.
I will say that one of the things that prompted this is I had probably the scariest moment of my life was right before I got this device, was about 7.5 years ago, 8 years ago, maybe now.
Uh-huh.
Is that the one thing that I never wanted to have happen, because I value my independence so much. I always valued having the ability to drive. And I always thought I was really good at saying, oh, I can't drive today, or I feel a seizure coming on, or I feel too tired. And then one morning I misjudged and I got in the car and I crashed my car. Now, I was fortunate that it happened right out of my garage. So
Yeah.
I wasn't
Okay.
on the
So you
road.
didn't get, okay, good.
I
Yeah.
mean, I got hurt, but nobody else did. I mean, I crashed
Yeah.
some cars and it turned into a big nightmare for me. But I mean, probably the people whose cars were hit weren't thrilled, but at least they weren't in them, right?
That's
Like,
right. That's right.
it could have been so much worse. And, I had gone periods of time without driving before, but nothing had ever happened. And I'd done it, intentionally sometimes. Like sometimes I took myself off of driving just
Yeah.
because I'd had a seizure and I didn't feel comfortable driving. But that was for me what are we going to do? What can we do? Because I knew I wanted to have a child. I knew I wanted to have this life, and I didn't see it. I didn't see it happening. I couldn't envision how it was going to happen at this point.
Yeah.
So enter the VNS device, and I came out of that with a total car, a broken foot, and really feeling pretty miserable. And it was then a little less than 4 years ago, my son was born, and so it was really sort of my I don't know how to say this without sounding too dramatic, but I guess it is really dramatic. But it was like I didn't believe it could happen, and it happened.
Yeah.
But there was a lot in between from where I started and where I ended up being able to have a baby and being able to have a healthy baby.
You said, honey, surprise.
Oh no, it's just
Oh,
me. I'm a solo parent.
okay. Yo, it's you. No, man. Okay. Now I want to ask this question. I know you said the first medication wasn't preferable for getting pregnant.
Right.
Okay. And you changed medicine over time because you wanted
Yep.
to have children sometime.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there any, or I'm sure they talked to you, is there any chance of this being passed on?
So there is there does seem to be some genetic component, but it's not likely in the same way. Like my mom has migraines, and so there might be some link there, but it's not that it's not clear. Like there's not, no.
Okay. I didn't know that either.
So I guess chance, yes. Likelihood, no. So
yeah, I'm sure there's a probability.
Yeah.
Going on.
I'd say it's probably higher, but it's not significant, no.
Yeah. Okay. Well, awesome. And so you work?
I do. I'm the director of special education at a school district, and so that's been one of the things that I think, I started as a teacher, and then I became a school psychologist, and then I've been in sort of administration and management for the last 13 years. And I didn't start out in special education, but I think it sort of found me. And I think because I think it was where I needed to be. I just didn't know I needed to be there because it was sort of my, I don't know that I even necessarily identified as someone with a disability until I started working so closely with kids with disabilities. I mean, it's been 20 years now, so it's been a long time, and I've been really finding being able to advocate for kids with disabilities and being able to help their families and being able to be on that side of things has been almost healing for me without knowing I needed it.
Yeah. It's a good form of therapy for you.
Yeah, and I again never really knew I needed it, but I think I did.
And a lot of these special needs kids, they're just beautiful. I mean, they're so innocent, kind. I mean, don't get me wrong, you still have a few stinkers because that's the way it
Oh,
happens in life and everywhere. But even the stinkers, they still have their good days of where they're just, yeah, just adorable, innocent, young. And I mean, I hate it on anybody. Again, I'm in a wheelchair. I got my neck broke playing football. And
Oh,
so I've learned to be the advocate for the people that can't talk for themselves,
yeah,
can't promote for themselves. Yeah.
and that's exactly
So,
right.
good
And
deal.
that's
Yes.
exactly right.
Sometimes we find our mission in life thrown a post among us without us knowing it or wanting it.
Yeah,
And then when we realize this is what I really like doing, yeah, sometimes it's brought on to us that way, you
yeah.
know.
And then I also have my company, Disability Ed Pros, where I sort of do. It's been kind of my passion project on the side for the last couple of years, where I'm helping parents learn to advocate for their kids or helping educate them to help them navigate the school system because it can be challenging.
It can be.
Yeah, and then my son also, he has been diagnosed with autism, so I get to be his advocate.
There you go. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, with special ed teachers, they should be paid more than any teacher.
100%.
Um, they should be paid. And even if I just give only one case to my argument point is when you have to fill out 50 pages of
Oh, so
IEP
much.
per student, that means that much more work you got to do
It's
compared to everybody
incredible.
else.
Yeah,
And I think they should be paid more. And again, I was a teacher for years, and I would still say the same thing. I
yeah.
taught seventh grade science, but
Ah,
still,
okay.
special education teachers deserve more money just because the IEPs they've got to put out to
Oh, I
give
know.
to the regular teachers and make sure they're following it,
Oh, I
and
know.
then they re-examine them 3 or 4 times a year, and then have the end. Yeah, they deserve more money.
It
So
is. It's a crazy amount of work. All teachers, honestly, but yeah, but special ed teachers are doing an incredible amount of work. It's 100% true.
that's right. All right, Diane, I appreciate you being here and sharing your journey, your story, and
Thank you
you
for
got a
having
beautiful out mind here, mindset, beautiful smile. I'm glad you're able to work through, find the possibilities to be able to continue on, and from there. And don't throw away your 2 years of swimming in college. How many people would love
me.
not to have a seizure and epilepsy, but to participate in college
Yeah.
sports. I was a baseball player and I had a college scholarship, and I was in there for my college ride for 2 full weeks, and then I got
No.
my neck broke. So 2 full weeks.
Oh.
So so I can at least say I participated for 2 weeks in the
Oh my goodness.
college level. So
Oh,
from there. So all right, Diane. Hey, tell people how they can get a hold of you, your website. I know you do consultations, and
yep.
tell how everybody they can get a hold of you if they want to reach out and find out some information.
Okay. You can find me. So the best way is Instagram. I'm at Disability Ed Pros. Same thing on YouTube. I have a channel, Disability Ed Pros, also. And Facebook, I'm not quite as active, but it's disability.ed. And then I think that's the best. Oh, my website. Sorry, disabilityedpros.com.
And
So you can
I'll
find me.
put those links in the show notes for
Awesome.
people
Thank you.
that can hunt and find them down. And
Yeah,
and always Google Deanna. All right,
Fannon.
Fannon, Fannon.
That's
All
it.
right, Google, and that'll take you straight to everything. So
Yeah.
you have to find her. So, all right, Deanna, I appreciate being here. Hey, we know there's people hurting and struggling today. And if you can leave us with a positive message to help them get through today, be a blessing.
So I think what I have learned is that you don't always have to sort of do that fake positivity, but you can find the good in any situation. And so that's what I've tried to do, which is you can take a bad situation and find something good about it. And that's the way that you can keep going. Bad things happen, but there is something positive to take out of it, or some lesson to be learned, even if it's a terrible situation. And it is okay to feel bad. It's okay to feel the feels. I definitely do that. I do it a lot. But find the good, find the lesson, find the takeaway that you can use. And then don't worry so much when people tell you like, oh, it's not that bad. I don't like that. But find the lesson, find the positive, and take that and use it as you're learning. Because there's always something that you can use.
Amen, sister. Hey, what's the old thing? Find the silver lining, right? And I like to change it up a little bit. They say when you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, I add to it, and no, it's not a train coming, you're in good shape.
Oh, I like that. All right.
The light at the end of the tunnel, as long as you know it's not a train coming.
Well, and one of my friends and I say that sometimes that silver lining might be a little tarnished, might be a little rusty, but
there
it's
you
still
go.
something.
That's still there. There you go. See, put a little twist on it. That's good. And work on a book. I told you work on a book.
All right.
And my other thing is I tell people, imagine you're, in a garbage fill, landfill or fertilizer, and all of a sudden there's a beautiful rose growing. And then I tell people, sometimes we have to walk through the trash or the crap to get to that rose.
I love it.
So, all right. All right, Dan, I appreciate you being here. Hey, everybody, share this with someone that can use this. Hey, nothing else, have a good old laugh with us if we had a good time here, and to help other people with seizure and epilepsy to go from there. Everybody else, hey, I'm Dr. James Perdue, the professor of perseverance. Do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your